Right. My name is Teacher Chris. I am a science teacher. I'm going to teach you a few things about acids and bases in our daily life. How acids and bases are used in our daily life. I have assumed that it's a secondary level course. I have assumed that it's a M6 chemistry, so I am going to teach for that level. I assume that all of you already have some knowledge about acids and bases, then what are acids and what are bases. So in terms of that, I would like to tell you what are the applications of acids in our daily life and what are the applications of bases in our daily life. How they are used in our daily life and how the bases are used in our daily life. So before I start my class, because you all are grown-up kids, because I've assumed that it's a high school class. So most of you might think to have a tattoo on your body, get a tattoo on your body somewhere, have a tattoo on your body, So if you have a tattoo on your body, before they used to have a gun, not a gun, but actually before they used to have a machine, they would use the machine to erase the tattoo, but now they don't. Why I said this, because to embrace the students' interest in the classroom. Because if I say this, the students will be much more interested in the subject because it has to do something with the real life. Alright, so the acid, let me put it this way. Now they have a special chemical they put on your body no matter how long you have had a tattoo. They just put it on your body and the tattoo goes away. If it's permanent or not permanent. If it's permanent or impermanent. But what I'm trying to say are the daily applications of, but I don't think that having a tattoo is a good idea. I think you should be academic. I think everything should in your life be disciplined and academic. That is what I personally think. Okay, let's get back to the lesson, and I think that you should enjoy the class as well, because I want to make this class as much more interesting, as much more understanding, as much more easy to learn, and as much more enjoyable to learn, because it is chemistry. So people assume that it is very difficult and it is very hard learning, but it is not. It is also very interesting, and it is also very, you can say, that can win your mind and that can win your interest as well. Alright, so I am going to teach you what are the basic applications of acids and the bases. So what is an acid, how it is different from a base, and what is a base and how it is different from an acid. For example, if an acid and a base are different, how we can find them out in our daily lives. So by now the students are able to think, they're able to think on their own, then what is the difference? Their thinking has started. So I will just say, what is an acid? What is a base? Things that have salt in them, or we can say things that have salt. So as I have assumed that you already have some knowledge of the chemistry, because I have assumed it's an M6 chemistry, that is grade 12 chemistry, and I am aware of some curriculum of the M5. So it's a bit different than it's a bit easy to understand. So acid, things that have salt. So what is a salt? The formula of the salt is NaCl. sodium chloride. Alright? So, by now, you understand that anything that has salt can be identified as acid. And anything that has sodium hydroxide, NaOH, things that do not, I'm saying it again, things that have salt are acids. Things that do not have salts are bases. So an acid can be termed as something that is taken as a salt. For example, in the sodium chloride, because it's a bit, because I don't have the technology in the classroom right now, so I'm just using the board, but I want you to be a bit attentive for just a moment, and it's very easy to understand, it is very easy to remember. The acid has sodium chloride, but the base has sodium hydroxide. Now tell me one thing that is still similar in these two formulas. What is the same thing?
The sodium.
The sodium, perfect, the sodium, the Na. It means that there is something going on in here with the hydroxide. By now the students are able to differentiate between what is a chlorine and what is a hydroxide ion. So this as well has a positive charge, this has a negative charge. The sodium can always contain a positive charge in a compound. What is a compound? The sodium chloride is a compound because it is made up of two things already. Not to take anything further on, two things to remember quietly: acids, that things that have salt; base, things that do not have salts. So yes, please. I will just take a...
Just demo.
Alright, okay. So things that have salt, things that do not have salts. Now sodium is the same. Have you ever noticed that whenever they want to scare you with the chemistry, they show you a big chart where there are hundreds of elements, and you look at those elements and you get scared. That why are these elements inside and I have to memorize those elements? Actually, you do not need to. I did not learn by memorizing the elements. I learned the use of the elements, and memorization happened automatically. It means that there are some elements that are very usable in our life, that are used in our daily life. For example, salt. So you can remember sodium is somewhere here. So let me say that sodium, I can write one element here if you don't mind, and don't get angry on the chemistry, and it's very interesting I think by now. So the sodium, I can write sodium over here, right?
Yeah.
So the sodium is written over here, Na. The word is sodium, but its representation is Na. A thing to remember. Because we can say it's sodium, but we cannot write it as SO.
Yes.
It cannot work. It is not in the book of chemistry, but it is very easy. How? Because it makes a salt called sodium chloride, which we use in our food every day. If sodium chloride is not in our body, alright, let me ask you a question for every day in our life. Our body has salt. And what if the salt in our body is finished? What can happen to us? Anyone in the classroom, please? Alright, please continue.
Again.
What can happen if the sodium chloride, that is salt, it's a sodium chloride, we can say that sodium chloride is table salt used in eating. You like chicken, right?
Yeah.
And if the chicken has salt, it gets tasty. So we can say that sodium, table salt, if it is not in our body, what can happen? What can happen to us? Because our body has salts, our body has sugar. And when we live every day in our life, okay, our body is made up of salts, we can say. So how I can say that our body is made up of salts? Because we can eat the salts. When we work every day in our life, we use salts in our body. Our body consumes the salts, and the salts are then excreted out. But then our body needs salts again. So if we take salt, sometimes we feel a word is dehydrated. We feel dehydration. What happens? Actually, that in our body, the salts are running low. When we are jumping, we are sweating. You know, when in the sweat, there are a lot of salts. So the salts in our body are going away. So when the salts go away, we have to take a lot of salts back in. So our body is dehydrated. Hydration, just a thing to remember, is hydration and dehydration. Okay, I think I don't want to teach you dehydration. I just want to teach the students these two things. So I would like to come back.
Yes.
All right. So the sodium chloride, table salt, is used in our body, and its representation is NaCl, sodium chloride. So by now, the students are able to identify that sodium is identified as Na in the chemical elements. So you see something, you have already learned that there is an element that is called sodium, but that is actually denoted by Na, not by SO, right? So you have learned by now already, by the everyday use, that sodium is by Na. I think it is much more easier to learn if some things are used in our daily life. For example, sodium chloride, table salt. Now some things that are used as a base in our daily life. Can you name anything that we eat that does not has a salt?
Chocolate.
That doesn't have a salt.
Cookie.
Anything that we eat that does not have a salt, that does not have salts. Milk.
Sugar.
Definitely
Yes,
sugar. Sugar is the opposite of salt.
Yeah.
It's something basic. So we are now talking about base. What are the bases? And we have now understood what are acids. Acids and bases. Now it's about bases. What are bases in everyday life? So it is easy to memorize. Now every day when you are drinking some milk, you can think on your own and you can write on the activity that I can design a free activity about it and give the students some quiz at the meantime. So this is what I would do. This is what I plan to do. Alright, so the basis. So how the base is used in our daily life. The milk has base. The milk is basic in nature. Okay. So this is it. Do you want me to continue with it? Did you? Yes.
Ah, okay. Finish now?
Yes, finish now.